in this program, we're going to see a different kind of function that is actually similar to something that we've already been using, but maybe you haven't been aware of. So we're going to be creating functions with things called return statements. So these are functions that can, although they don't always need to, they can receive parameters from the main program. But they are going to be returning information. So they're not just going to receive something and like calculate and display something. They might calculate something and then return the result of that back to the main program. So we've been doing something with that. So just to do a little bit of work with this, we're going to create a variable n, which is just, of course, going to represent a number. And then here is what we have been using. Rand is our, of course, random number, and this is a function. You can tell that this looks like other function calls because we have the open close parentheses here. N equals rand, and then what we can do is we can cout n, and then it will display whatever random number was stored in n. With this function, we actually don't even need to store it in a number, or sorry, an integer variable. We can just simply output the result of that function. Both of these work totally fine. Every time we call the random function, there's some mysterious code that happens. The idea behind a random number function, of course, is it will not be a predictable number. And then it returns it to the main program so that we can use it like this. So if I run this, both of these will generate numbers and display them. Other things that we can do with our rand function that is going to relate to what we're going to be creating in this program is, and we've done this a lot, n equals random, so rand modulus 10 plus 1. And then we can cout n again. So in this situation, we are performing math with our function. So the function returns a random number. We are doing a modulus 10, so it'll go from 0 to 9, and we're adding 1. So this gives us a random number from 1 to 10. And then we can also do something like putting it inside of an if statement. So if our random is larger than 10,000, then what we're going to do is we're going to cout hello. So if I run this, hopefully it's randomly larger than 10,000 here. Okay, there we go. So I've got my two random numbers. I have the number 8, which is the randomly determined number from 1 to 10, and then our fourth random result was larger than 10,000, although we don't know what it is. It gave us the word hello because I put it in the if statement. So consider all of the uses of rand here. We're storing it in a variable, we're outputting it, we're performing math with it, we're using it in an if statement. So in every single one of these instances, rand acts like an integer variable. So this is very important to helping you understand how return statements work. So rand, which has a return statement, acts like an integer variable in all of these situations. So rand actually has the type integer. You may not have known this, but functions often have types, although we have only used void so far, which is like the absence of a type. So whatever type of data is being returned is the function's type. Functions that return no data are void. And this is what we've been doing a whole bunch of already. We've got void functions. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an unbelievably just very basic, simple function with a return statement, just so that we can see this in action. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a function called DoubleMe. So what DoubleMe is going to do is it's going to take in value. So you'll see that there are no arguments here in between these parentheses. So rand just kind of does its own thing. But we're going to give DoubleMe an integer, and it's going to return the double of that integer. So here's how we write it. So the first thing that is a little bit different is it is going to have the type int for integer. So the name of it is going to be DoubleMe, and then we are going to be receiving a number, so we're going to put int n, and then we're ready to write it. So int answer, we're going to create this. Answer is going to be equal to n times 2, and then we are going to return answer to the main program. So the way this goes is we're going to get a number, we're going to calculate what double that number is, and then we're going to return that result to the main program. So down here, we are not going to be writing this line of code. So this is a common mistake that people make. They'll put DoubleMe and then 4, something like this. Now, if I run the program, this is going to do absolutely nothing. So there's nothing here. There's no purpose. Kind of what happens here is the number 4 gets sent up. It calculates an 8. It returns the 8, but then it gets destroyed. There's nothing to hold that data. So that's why if we want to use this, we want to use kind of the same purposes as we saw here for rand. So number one thing that we can do with a function that has a type is we can store it in a variable. So just like this, I can cout and I will get the value 8 because there we go. So 4 times 2 is going to be 8. Other purposes that we can do are we can just simply cout DoubleMe 12, and we're going to get a 24. We can perform math with this. So if n were to be equal to DoubleMe 5 divided by 2, which makes absolutely no sense because I'm doubling and then I'm dividing it, but there's an example. So if we cout n for this, we're just going to get our 5 and l. And then the other thing that we can do is we can put DoubleMe into an if statement. So if DoubleMe 20 is smaller than 100, then we can cout too small and l. So if I run that, I get all of those results, 8, 24, 5, and then too small. So the key here is that when there is a return statement, this line here defines the type of the function. So whatever we are returning here is the type of the function. And we can do strings, we can do doubles, we can do booleans. Really, it's kind of limitless. If it's a type, we can return it. And then the other thing is, you may have noticed, although you've been using it all this time without thinking about it, our main program has the type int. And if you've ever wondered why this is at the bottom, return 0, it's actually matching this style. So every function that has a type has a return of that type. So this 0, return 0, ends the use of the function. This is the main function, actually. So we could actually embed this into other programs, but it follows the exact same style. So we're going to use this a whole bunch because very often we're going to want to do some kind of process and then communicate back to the main program what that is that we accomplished.